What happens when one of Britain's most respected actors sits down for what should be a friendly chat, only to find himself under attack from a host who seems determined to tear him apart? In just 30 seconds, a single comment would turn a morning talk show into a battlefield, exposing the kind of behavior that would ultimately lead to one of the most shocking exits in daytime television history. The Loose Women's studio felt different that morning. While makeup artists buzzed around and camera operators checked their angles, Colin Firth sat quietly in the green room, running through his mental notes about his latest film project. He had done hundreds of interviews over the years, from intimate one-on-ones to massive press junkets, and this was supposed to be just another routine appearance. A quick chat about his new movie, maybe some light banter about his career, and he would be on his way. But the energy in the building felt strange. He could not quite put his finger on it, but something was off. As he walked onto the set, the panel was already in position. Denise Welch sat at the center, flanked by the other hosts. There were the usual smiles, the polite hellos, the sort of professional warmth you would expect from seasoned television presenters. But as Colin took his seat, he noticed something in Denise's expression. It was not quite a smile. It was something else. Something calculating. The cameras started rolling. Denise opened with what seemed like a standard introduction. Colin Firth, welcome to Loose Women. It's so lovely to have you here. Colin nodded graciously. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. The first few questions were harmless enough. They talked about his new film, the challenges of the role, working with the director. Colin answered thoughtfully, as he always did, giving detailed responses that showed his genuine passion for his craft. The other panelists chimed in with their own questions, and for a moment, it seemed like everything was going smoothly. Then, Denise shifted in her seat. You know, Colin, she said, her tone changing slightly, I've always found it interesting how actors like you talk about the craft, the art, the passion, but at the end of the day, you're just pretending for a living, aren't you? There was a brief, uncomfortable silence. The other panelists exchanged glances. Colin's expression remained neutral, though there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Well, Colin said carefully, I suppose you could reduce it to that, but I think there's a bit more to it. Acting is about telling stories, connecting with audiences, exploring the human condition. Denise let out a small laugh. The human condition? Right. Must be nice to get paid millions to explore the human condition, while the rest of us are just trying to get by. One of the other panelists, clearly trying to lighten the mood, jumped in. I think what Colin does is absolutely wonderful. The performances he's given over the years have touched so many people. But Denise was not backing down. Oh, I'm sure they have. I'm just saying, let's call it what it is. You stand in front of a camera. You say some lines someone else wrote, and you collect a check. It's hardly brain surgery, is it? Colin's jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his composure. I think any profession can be reduced to its most basic elements if you want to dismiss it. But acting, like any art form, requires dedication, vulnerability, and a deep understanding of human behavior. Denise leaned forward. Vulnerability. That's a word you actors love, isn't it? You know what real vulnerability is, Colin? It's a single mom working 2 jobs to feed her kids. It's someone losing their home because they can't make rent. It's not standing on a film set with a team of people catering to your every need. Another panelist tried to intervene. Denise, I think we're getting a bit off track here. Colin came to talk about his film. No, Denise said, waving her hand dismissively. I think this is important. I think people need to hear this. Colin sits here talking about art and passion. But let's be honest, you've never had to struggle a day in your life, have you? You went to posh schools. You've had every door opened for you. Some of us had to fight for everything we've got. Colin took a breath. I understand that everyone's journey is different, Denise. I've never claimed to have had the hardest life. But I have worked hard at my craft. I've dedicated decades to honing my skills, to understanding characters, to bringing stories to life in a way that resonates with people. Decades, Denise repeated with a smirk. Decades of playing dress up and getting paid obscene amounts of money for it. Meanwhile, nurses are working round the clock for a fraction of what you earn for a single film. Teachers are shaping young minds for pennies. But sure, tell us more about how hard you've worked. The atmosphere in the studio had completely changed. What started as an awkward moment had escalated into something much more hostile. The crew members were shifting uncomfortably behind the cameras. The other panelists looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. And Colin Firth, who had walked in expecting a pleasant morning chat, was now sitting in the hot seat, being openly attacked by someone who seemed to have a personal axe to grind. "I think you're making quite a few assumptions about me and my life," Colin said, his voice steady but firm. "Yes, I've been fortunate. Yes, I've had opportunities. But I've also faced rejection, doubt, and failure. Every actor has. It's part of the job." Denise laughed. "Rejection and doubt. Oh, how terribly difficult that must have been for you. I'm sure you cried all the way to your mansion." One of the other panelists, visibly uncomfortable, tried again to steer the conversation. "Colin, tell us about your character in the film. What drew you to this role?" But before Colin could answer, Denise cut in. "Oh, here we go again. The character, the role, the motivation. It's all so self-important, isn't it? You know what I find fascinating, Colin? How actors always act like they're doing something profound, when really, you're just entertainers. You're no different from a juggler at a circus." "Denise," another panelist said sharply, "that's incredibly disrespectful." "Disrespectful?" Denise turned to her colleague. "What's disrespectful is pretending that what he does is somehow more valuable than what ordinary people do every day. What's disrespectful is sitting here acting like he's some kind of artist when he's just a well-paid performer." Colin's patience was wearing thin. "I've never claimed to be more valuable than anyone else. I do a job, just like everyone else does a job. The difference is, my job happens to be public. But that doesn't mean it's not real work." "Real work," Denise scoffed. "Real work is what my mother did, cleaning houses on her hands and knees. Real work is what my father did, breaking his back in a factory. You, Colin Firth, have never done a day of real work in your life." "That's enough," Colin said, his voice rising slightly for the first time. "I came here as a guest, to talk about a film I'm proud of, and you've turned this into some kind of personal attack. I don't know what your issue is, but this has nothing to do with my work." Denise leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smile on her face. There it is. The real Colin Firth. Not so polished now, are you? Not so charming when someone challenges you. "Challenging someone and attacking them are two very different things," Colin replied. "You're not interested in a conversation. You're interested in tearing me down for reasons I don't understand." Another panelist tried once more to intervene. "Colin, I'm so sorry about this. This isn't how we normally do things here." But Denise was not finished. "Oh, don't apologize to him. He's fine. He'll go back to his comfortable life, his fancy parties, his award ceremonies. Meanwhile, the people watching this at home are struggling to pay their bills. And here he is, talking about the human condition, like he has any idea what that actually means." Colin stood up. The movement was sudden enough that it caught everyone off guard. For a moment, nobody said anything. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the tension that had taken over the studio. "You know what, Denise?" Colin said, his voice calm but firm. "You're absolutely right. I have been fortunate. I've had a good life, a successful career. But I've also worked incredibly hard for everything I've achieved. I've spent years studying, training, pushing myself to be better, and I've used whatever platform I have to try to make a positive difference in the world. But you don't want to hear any of that, do you? You've already decided who I am, what I represent, and nothing I say is going to change your mind." Denise crossed her arms. Is there a point to this little speech? The point, Colin said, is that I came here to have a respectful conversation. I came here to talk about a film that I care about, that I believe has something meaningful to say. But instead, I've been subjected to a series of personal attacks that have nothing to do with my work and everything to do with your own issues. And I'm not going to sit here and be insulted anymore. One of the panelists stood up as well. Colin, please, we can move on. Let's talk about the film. Colin shook his head. I appreciate that, I really do. But I think it's too late for that. This conversation stopped being about the film a long time ago. Denise rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. The dramatic exit. How very actor of you. You see? Colin said, gesturing towards her. Even now, you can't help yourself. Every single thing I do, you twist it into something negative. I could sit here all day, and you would find a way to criticize me. So I'm choosing not to waste any more of my time. Another panelist spoke up, her voice pleading. Colin, we really didn't mean for this to happen. We love your work. Please stay. Colin turned to her with a gentle smile. I know you do, and I appreciate that. But this isn't about you. This is about someone who clearly has no interest in conducting a professional interview. He looked back at Denise. I don't know what I did to offend you, Denise. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe you just decided today that you wanted to take someone down a peg, and I happened to be in the chair. But whatever your reasons, this is not acceptable. You can disagree with someone. You can challenge their views. You can even critique their work. But what you've done here today is just cruel. Denise's expression hardened. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. Someone needs to call out this nonsense. No, Colin said firmly. You're projecting your own frustrations onto me. And that's fine. We all have our issues. But I'm not going to be your punching bag. He began to unhook the microphone from his shirt. The sound of the clip coming undone seemed impossibly loud in the tense silence of the studio. One of the producers rushed over, looking panicked. Colin, please, the producer said quietly. Can we talk about this? Colin handed her the microphone. There's nothing to talk about. This interview is over. Denise let out an exaggerated sigh. Unbelievable. Can't handle a little bit of honesty? Can you? Colin stopped and turned back to face her one last time. Honesty? You think that's what this was? Let me tell you something, Denise. Honesty is speaking your truth with respect for the person you're speaking to. What you did today was not honesty. It was hostility disguised as honesty. There's a difference. Oh, please, Denise shot back. Don't lecture me about respect. You come in here with your fancy accent and your posh manner, acting like you're better than everyone else. I've never acted like I'm better than anyone, Colin said, his voice rising. But you've spent this entire interview acting like you're better than me. You've judged me, insulted me, and dismissed everything I've said. And for what? What did you accomplish here today, Denise? Did it make you feel good? Did it make you feel powerful? The other panelists sat in stunned silence. The crew members looked at each other, unsure of what to do. The cameras kept rolling, documenting every moment of what would become one of the most talked about interviews in the show's history. Denise stood up now too, matching Colin's stance. You know what, Colin? Maybe I did want to take you down a peg. Maybe I'm tired of people like you being put on a pedestal while the rest of us are treated like we're nothing. Maybe I'm sick of actors being worshipped like gods when there are people doing actually important work who get no recognition at all. Then take that up with society, Colin said. Take it up with the media. Take it up with the people who decide what's newsworthy and what's not. But don't take it out on me, just because I happen to be an actor. I didn't create this system. I'm just trying to do my job the best I can. Your job, Denise said mockingly. Your job is pretending. My job is talking to people, being real, saying what needs to be said. And what needs to be said right now is that you're not as special as you think you are. Colin shook his head slowly. I never said I was special. You're the one who keeps bringing that up. You're the one who's made this about class and privilege and all these other things that have nothing to do with why I'm here. I came to talk about a film. That's it. But you couldn't even let that happen without turning it into some kind of crusade. One of the panelists stood and placed a hand on Denise's arm. Denise, this has gone far enough. Colin is our guest. We need to treat him with respect. Denise pulled her arm away. Don't tell me how to do my job. I'm asking the questions that need to be asked. You're not asking questions, the panelist replied. You're attacking him. There's a difference. Finally, Colin said quietly. Someone else sees it too. Denise turned on her colleague. Oh, so now you're ganging up on me? Both of you. This is my show too. I have every right to ask whatever questions I want. It's not your show, another panelist interjected. It's our show. All of us. And what you're doing right now is embarrassing all of us. The cracks in the panel were showing now. What had started as Colin versus Denise had evolved into something bigger. The other hosts were clearly uncomfortable with what was happening, and they were not afraid to say so anymore. Colin took a step back. Look, I appreciate some of you trying to make this right, but I think the damage is done. I don't feel comfortable continuing this interview, and honestly, I don't think any of you should feel comfortable with how this has been conducted. Colin, please, one of the panelists said, give us another chance. We can start over. Colin smiled sadly. I wish I could. I really do. But I can't sit here knowing that at any moment, this could start up again. I can't do an interview where I'm constantly on the defensive, waiting for the next attack. Denise scoffed. Oh, poor Colin. Can't handle a tough interview. This wasn't a tough interview, Colin said, his voice sharp now. A tough interview is when someone asks difficult questions about your work, your choices, your career. This was just mean. There's a difference between being tough and being cruel, Denise. And you crossed that line a long time ago. The producer stepped in again. Colin, I understand you're upset. We're all upset. But walking off in the middle of a live show, that's going to create a lot of problems. Colin turned to her. I understand that. And I'm sorry for any inconvenience this causes. But I have to draw a line somewhere. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've dealt with difficult interviews before. But I've never been treated with such open contempt by a host, and I'm not going to normalize that behavior by sitting here and taking it. So that's it then, Denise said. You're just going to storm off like a child having a tantrum. Colin looked at her with something close to pity. If that's how you need to see it to make yourself feel better, then go ahead. But we both know what really happened here today. You came into this with an agenda, and you used me as a target. And now you're trying to make it seem like I'm the one who's unreasonable for not wanting to be insulted on national television. He turned to the other panelists. I'm genuinely sorry that this is how things turned out. I know this puts you all in a difficult position, but I hope you understand why I can't stay. They nodded, some with tears in their eyes, clearly distressed by the situation. One of them reached out and squeezed his hand. We understand, Colin, and we're so sorry. Colin squeezed back. Thank you. That means a lot. Before Colin could take another step, Denise's voice rang out across the studio. You know what your problem is, Colin? You can't handle the truth. And you live in this bubble where everyone tells you how wonderful you are, and the moment someone challenges that, you fall apart. Colin stopped. He stood there for a moment, his back to the panel, clearly wrestling with whether to respond or just keep walking. Finally, he turned around. You really can't help yourself, can you? He said. Even now, even after everything that's been said, you still have to get in one more dig, one more insult, one more attempt to belittle me. I'm just being honest, Denise replied. Something you clearly can't handle. There you go again with that word, honest. You keep using it like it's a shield. But honesty without kindness is just cruelty. And that's all you've been today. Cruel. One of the other panelists stood up. Denise, enough. This has to stop. You're all defending him, Denise said, me looking around. You're all taking his side. No, another panelist said quietly. You're the only one who thinks this is acceptable. The rest of us are mortified. Denise looked genuinely shocked. Mortified? By what? By me asking real questions? By me not treating him like royalty? You didn't ask real questions, the panelist shot back. You insulted him. Repeatedly. You made assumptions about his life, his character, his work, without knowing anything about him. That's not journalism. That's not even conversation. That's just bullying. The word hung in the air. Bullying. It was harsh, but it was accurate, and everyone in the studio knew it. Denise's face flushed red. How dare you? I'm not a bully. Then what would you call this? Colin asked. You've spent the last 20 minutes attacking my profession, my background, my character. You've dismissed everything I've said. You've mocked me. You've belittled me. If that's not bullying, what is it? It's called holding people accountable, Denise insisted. It's called not being starstruck. It's called treating everyone the same, celebrity or not. But you're not treating me the same, Colin said. You're treating me worse. You've been hostile from the start, and I don't understand why. What did I do to you? Did we have some interaction I don't remember? Did I say something that offended you? Because this level of animosity has to come from somewhere. Denise looked away. It's not personal. It feels pretty personal, Colin replied. It feels like you came into this with a preconceived notion of who I am, and you were determined to prove yourself right, regardless of what I actually said or did. The producer was making frantic gestures from the side of the set, clearly trying to get someone, anyone, to wrap this up. But nobody was listening. The confrontation had taken on a life of its own. You want to know what I think? Denise said, her voice rising. I think actors like you have it too easy. I think you get praised for doing the bare minimum. I think you live in a world that's completely disconnected from reality, and someone needs to remind you of that. And you appointed yourself to that role? Colin asked. You decided that I needed to be taken down a peg, so you ambushed me on your show? It's not an ambush. It's an interview. No, Colin said firmly. An interview involves questions and answers. It involves a back and forth. And what you did was deliver a series of attacks disguised as observations. There's a massive difference. Another panelist spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. Colin is right. This wasn't an interview. This was uncomfortable to watch, and I'm ashamed that it happened on our show. Oh, so now you're all ganging up on me, Denise said, looking around at her fellow hosts. This is unbelievable. I'm trying to do something different, something real, and you're all acting like I've committed some terrible crime. Different doesn't mean better, another panelist said, and real doesn't mean cruel. You crossed a line today, Denise. Multiple lines, actually. Look, he said, his voice softer. I don't want to cause a rift among you all, but I can't pretend that what happened here was okay. It wasn't. And it shouldn't happen to anyone. Denise threw her hands up. Fine. Everyone thinks I'm the villain. Maybe I did let my feelings get the better of me, but at least I was being real. There's a middle ground between asking about breakfast and launching personal attacks, one of the other panelists said, and that's where we should have been. But today, we failed. The tension among the panel was palpable now. What had started as Colin versus Denise had fractured the entire group. Alliances were forming. Sides were being taken. And all of it was happening in front of the cameras, in front of the crew, in front of everyone. Colin took a deep breath. I think I've said everything I need to say. I appreciate those of you who spoke up. I appreciate your honesty and your courage. But I really do need to go now. But this situation isn't going to get better by me staying. Wait, Denise said suddenly. Her voice had changed. The defiance was still there, but there was something else too. Something that might have been the beginning of awareness. You're really leaving? You're actually walking out? Yes, Colin said simply. I am. Because of what I said? Because of how you've conducted this entire interview, Colin clarified. It's not one thing you said. It's the cumulative effect of everything. The hostility, the dismissiveness, the personal nature of the attacks. All of it. For the first time since the interview began, Denise seemed at a loss for words. She looked around at her colleagues, at the crew, at the cameras still recording every moment of this disaster. I was just trying to ask tough questions, she said. But her voice lacked its earlier conviction and strength. I know, Colin said, but there's a way to ask tough questions without being hostile. There's a way to challenge someone without attacking them. And that's a skill that every interviewer needs to learn. Maybe this will be a lesson for you. I hope it is. He took one last look at Denise, who was still standing there, but the defiance had drained from her posture completely. She looked smaller somehow. I hope you figure out whatever it is that's making you so angry, Colin said quietly. Because this, what you did today, it's not healthy. For you or for anyone else. And I genuinely mean that. I'm not saying it to be cruel. I'm saying it because I think you're better than this. The words hung in the air. They were unexpected, given everything that had happened. But they were sincere and genuine. Colin was not interested in revenge. And then, without waiting for a response, Colin Firth walked off the set of Loose Women. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence of the studio. Nobody tried to stop him this time. The producers stood frozen in shock, completely unsure of what to do. The other panelists remained in their seats, some with tears streaming down their faces, others staring at the floor. And Denise Welch stood alone at the center of it all, the architect of one of the most controversial moments in the show's history. The studio erupted into chaos the moment Colin disappeared through the door. Producers rushed onto the set, their headsets buzzing with frantic communications from every direction. The crew members who had witnessed the whole thing exchanged worried glances, but one of the panelists walked over to Denise with a look of complete disbelief. "What were you thinking?" she asked. "What on earth were you thinking?" Denise shook her head slowly and deliberately. "I don't know. I don't know." The cameras had been turned off. The damage was done completely. Every word, every insult, every uncomfortable moment had been captured, and there was no taking it back. Outside the studio, Colin climbed into the waiting car. His publicist slid in beside him, already on her phone dealing with the situation. But Colin just looked out the window, watching the building grow smaller as they pulled away. He felt oddly at peace. He had stood up for himself. He had drawn a line. He had refused to sit there and be insulted. And while he knew this moment would follow him, he also knew he had done the right thing. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the most powerful statement is refusing to participate in your own humiliation. And sometimes standing up for yourself means knowing when enough is truly enough. Colin Firth had done all of that, and as the car carried him away, he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with his dignity completely intact.